I lived in London. I wanted to go somewhere far away. I never Googled it. I had no picture in my mind. I had no idea what it was, but I planned to hitchhike through 22 countries across the world to stay there for a year. Are you not scared?
Yeah.
My answer was always the same. I'm more scared to feel dead while I'm alive than to die while I feel alive.
Just grind and work, and like we kind of lost that trust a little bit. He had in his head that I can't trust strangers, but no, it's trust from within that we're talking about.
That's where the trust goes out the window from school age on. There's so many young people walking around not trusting themselves and thinking they're not good enough, they're not smart enough, just because someone said it.
If I listened to my boring ass teacher here in this classroom, I would never be where I am today. I would never do what I would love to do.
You don't need a confirmation from outside the whole time if you have it within. It's a foundation that you can stand on. It doesn't take years, it doesn't take months. Sometimes it is something you just have to do every day for a couple of weeks.
Yeah. When something dies, it's peaceful. The birth of something new is painful.
If it costs my happiness, then fuck that. I don't want to do it. Distraction is like the biggest market in the world. Anything that can distract you is gonna make money.
We're distracting you right now.
So what's your message to people, maybe even from Sweden, who grew up like you and are still playing it safe and are scared to go out and explore?
I would say...
Hey.
So, hey! How's it going?
Tired, pregnant.
Yeah.
How's it going for you?
Good.
Good. No,
I'm not pregnant.
glad.
Still tired. No, the weather is so shitty in Sweden right now. It's supposed to be summer.
But it definitely doesn't feel like summer. It feels like a depressing autumn in Germany.
Yeah, and that doesn't help when you're pregnant. And your one and only, or the best energy source that you have is vitamin D or the sun in general, heat.
100%. Yeah, I feel very low with this summer, and especially because I cannot fly this summer, it's extra depressing.
Yeah.
But there's a little light in the end of the tunnel. Want to spill the beans?
I will ask you, what are the beans?
The beans are southern sun. Okay, we are moving to Portugal in November.
Yes.
We're done with Sweden. Sorry, guys.
Yeah, we tried. It was
Really
our
did.
home for a while, but in the end, it was not what we wanted. Not what we need anymore.
No.
We wouldn't have been where we are if we didn't go here, because there was so much opportunity opening up when we got here. But yeah, it's just dragging us down at the moment.
Yeah. I mean, it's just like we said when we spoke to someone the other day. It's like when we got here, all the doors were opening for us.
Yeah.
Everything was in flow. We didn't even have time to question it because everything was just working.
Yeah.
And now everything is so stagnant and resistant and tiring, and yeah, it just doesn't feel right.
Yeah. It feels like we're walking against the wind all the time, or the stream, or whatever. There's no flow, and we're just forcing it even though we don't want to. But it's like we've been looking this corner, that corner, this corner, like, where is the flow? God damn it. And it just doesn't show itself. So we need a drastic change. And Portugal, when we were on the world trip, we asked ourselves, when we were still in Mexico, I think.
I think so.
So
too.
before our first podcast episode, we were like, where should we move? It's like, it needs to be in Europe somewhere, because we want to be close to family, and we have family and friends and all of that stuff. It's very nice to still be in Europe. Yeah. And we like Europe.
Yeah. But I would have, for me, the other option was Australia, but that was not an option for you.
No, and it's
too hard.
It's impossible almost for us in the moment. Yeah. Yeah. So what we came to the conclusion was like, Italy, maybe North Italy, maybe South Italy on the coast, or maybe Croatia, Greece. Like, there were so many. Oh yeah, Spain, Mallorca, like all of these, like these have communities that we can vibe with, that we can align with. But then there was also like, oh, but Portugal. Like that's been on our radar for a little bit.
Mm.
The funniest thing about this, you've been to Portugal once.
10 years ago with my ex-boyfriend. Hi, Marcel.
And I've been to Portugal 0 times. And I'm moving there in November, and this is gonna be the first time I'm gonna be there. We were planning on going there this summer to like check out the vibe and do like a little scouting and stuff, but we haven't, and we won't have time.
No,
So-
and the funniest part about that is when I was in Portugal with my ex, I didn't even really like it. We both were a little bit like, nah. To be fair, I was in a really touristic area, and it was like a proper like holiday.
Yeah,
You know, we were there for like 10 days, and we stayed in an Airbnb.
yeah.
And
Ice
we
cream and flip flops.
100%.
I mean, that's a good vibe, but you know what I mean.
Yeah, but it was like, you know, this like kind of Magaluf almost
Oh,
vibe
okay.
where we're staying.
Yeah,
So it wasn't what I'm imagining when I think of Portugal now.
Yeah, gotcha, gotcha. Yeah, that makes sense, because we were like, yeah, Portugal could be nice, and we just like ended the conversation there with like Italy, anywhere where there's water and ocean and coast and
Warmth.
warmth, yeah. Like anywhere in the south of Europe, we're kind of open, and where people are still like open for breathwork and mindfulness experiences, where we can be like, okay, we can take our business there, or our business is gonna grow there even, or maintain on all the things. So we were like, maybe not the more like less touristy countries because of that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then suddenly Portugal just popped up everywhere.
Yeah.
We had so many signs.
Throughout the whole travel.
Everyone we spoke to, everything, every time we mentioned Europe, people said something about Portugal. There were so many signs it was hard to ignore.
Yeah.
And we are very trusting people. We are very trusting people.
Yes, we are. And that's really what we wanted to like. Yeah, this episode was this is the only plan we have for this episode is to talk about trust.
Yes.
And like our approach to trust and what it means to us. And then we haven't planned much. We are just trusting.
Trusting.
That the process of this podcast will unveil.
Yes, 100%.
Yeah, unfold.
Yeah. And it also reminds me, talking about this kind of trust and the kind of way we've been living, reminds me of also how I lived before that when I hitchhiked from London to Australia.
Yep.
I remember that I knew that I wanted to go traveling. I lived in London. I wanted to go somewhere far away.
Yeah.
And people suddenly started popping up with Byron Bay, Australia. And I heard it so many times within a couple of months that I was like, this is not a coincidence.
Yeah.
And you have to imagine, I never once looked up Byron Bay. I never Googled it. I had no picture in my mind.
Yeah.
I had no idea what it was.
Yeah.
But I planned to hitchhike through 22 countries across the world to stay there for a year.
Yeah.
And I just fully trusted.
Yeah.
I'm going to go there. And the universe is telling me basically I need to go there.
Yeah.
God is telling me I need to go there.
Something is showing me this is the path.
Yeah. So I just did.
What was one of those questions that you always got when you told people about this is my plan?
Are you not scared?
Yeah.
I think that was the first always. Like,
Yeah.
are you not scared? But
You're gonna die.
and my answer was always the same. I'm
Yeah.
more scared to feel dead while I'm alive than to die while I feel alive.
Yeah, that's deep.
Yeah.
You little philosopher.
Look at
But okay, yeah. But and because why you weren't scared was because of trust, no?
Yeah, and
In a
because
way.
I think my trust to life and the universe is so big and beyond that it goes beyond death. I mean, how can you not trust death? Everything in the world goes there, everything. And in the end of the day, if you are a little bit spiritual, or even if you're not, like even if you just look at biology, nothing really dies. Everything just transitions. So there's this deep trust within me that if I'm meant to leave this realm and this reality, then cool, what's next? I'm not, there's no fear of death or endings because there is no such thing in my eyes.
Yeah. Brian Johnson just entered the chat. No. He may prove you wrong. No, but yeah, I agree. It really is like, yeah, the circle, it's inevitable.
Yeah.
And like you can fight it or you can just trust it.
Yeah.
And like everything, like I always say most of the time, like wherever you focus on and you zoom in or zoom out, you will have the conclusion. The more you look, the crazier it gets, and the more of a miracle that thing that you're zooming in or zooming out from is. Like, yeah, everything. Like people being able to listen to us right now. No one is listening to us right now except you and me, but the listeners can, through ones and zeros and satellites and crazy shit, hear me saying this, right? Yeah. And not only that, if you zoom in even further, it's like my vocal box is vibrating, and then that vibration goes out into this thing that, it's just like, the more you zoom in or zoom out on things, the crazier it gets, right? And realizing like everything is a miracle, basically.
And everything has a purpose. Everything has a purpose. Like, as you said, like taking a plant, cut it in two, take a microscope and look at it, and you're like, wow, this is all thought out. Like, there's nothing is a coincidence. So how can you believe that things are coincidence?
And
like
so-called coincidences are no coincidence. Like, it's, I don't know. It's funny that way, but that's the fundamental of trust, I think. Exactly. And the funny thing about this is like your trip was before we met, like 2017, right?
Yeah, 2016 actually.
16, yeah. So you were a bit ahead of me. I was still traveling. At that time, I was just skiing and doing ski seasons, right? Mm-hmm. But there was, since my first ski season, I never really did any research about the place either. I was like, my first one was in Austria. I was like, okay, yeah. Meyerhofen, I've heard about it. I know where it is. I've never been there. It's in the Alps. People go there. I will go there. I bought I paid for the accommodation before I got there. Never looked at it. Never been there before. I bought the ski ticket before. Like everything was just done. And like, I'm going to go there. All I know is I'm going there with two friends that I know really well, and the rest will unfold. And it did. Same thing the next year. In France, I jumped into a car full of 4 strangers that traveled from north of Sweden and picked up people that I was going to do a season with. And I was the last person in Gothenburg at the time before, because we drove from Sweden down to France. And I didn't know them. I never met any one of them. We had like a group chat and we barely talked in there because we're dudes. But it was just like, like full trust of like, my brother is also going to join, but he's right now in Italy skiing, and I will reunite with him eventually. But it was just, it's that trust of, but like, I just know that it's going to work out. Like, this is fine.
But what I find interesting is to look at the perspectives of where our trust comes from individually, because we have such a different background. And your trust is literally created out of trust, and my trust is created out of having nothing and having to trust. Do you know what I mean?
I understand.
Your background is like coming from the super safe Swedish household, parents still together, everything was provided, you never had to worry, and you just felt trust for life because you always had everything you needed. Where I never had anything I needed. No safety, no family, no love, no nothing of that. And that made me trust so much in myself and my abilities, and in just the fact that everything is so fucked up, it's got to go better. It's got to get better. And that was kind of, I think, my roots of trust, to just be like, or maybe it started with being fearless to trusting. Maybe my roots actually started with being like, what's the worst that can happen? Like, I'll die.
I don't give a fuck anymore.
Exactly. And if I die, that's fine, because my life is fucked up. And maybe that's where this trust started, that I realized, okay, I'm not dying. Things are actually going better.
Like jump and the net will appear kind of thing. But you did it accidentally.
Exactly.
With like, okay, I'm at the rock bottom. I can't I can't go lower right now.
Exactly.
And or lower would be death, but maybe that's even better. Maybe that's the
Maybe that's cool.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah, exactly. And I remember that situation when I was 14 years old. The story you know very well. I told you many times.
Mm-hmm.
And I decided to hitchhike to Berlin.
Yeah.
And I packed my bag at home. And I had no idea what I was doing. I saw hitchhiking in movies before. I did it a couple of times in the city, you know, in the evening when me and my friends needed to get home. Super dodgy. We were like 12 or 13.
Yeah.
Holy crap.
Yeah.
Don't do that.
Yeah.
And then I was like, well, I did it in the city, so I can do it outside of the city. So I can hitchhike to Berlin. And I lived in Munich, which is around, I would say like a 6, 7, 8 hour drive, probably.
Yep.
And it was like a weekday evening. I was, of course, was supposed to go to school, but I was like, no, I'm going to go to Berlin. There's this event and my friends want to join. And my mom saw me in the hallway how I was packing up my bag, and she stopped and she's like, what are you doing? Where are you going? And I was like, oh, hi, I'm hitchhiking to Berlin. And she was just like, no, you're not. Yeah. And I'm like, well, yes, I am. And she just stood in front of me and she didn't know what to say. I was like, okay, look, Mom, we have 2 options. Either you will let me go now and I will call you every half an hour. You will know where I am. I can send you pictures of the number plates and we're going to be friends forever. And I'll always trust you. You'll always trust me because I don't need to lie at you. Or you will say no now and I will go anyway. Maybe not today, but another day. You can't lock me in forever. You will think I'm staying at a friend's house. I will be in Berlin. You won't know anything about it. And I will not be able to trust you in the future.
Mm-hmm.
What a fucking smart little shit I was.
Yeah. Hard pill to swallow.
And my mom just stared at me and she was like shaking her head for a while. And then she was like, call me every half an hour. And off I went. And even just to get that, how do I say, the trust in myself to even stand up for myself like that and be like, I don't even fear my parents. I don't even fear rules. I don't even fear like, and I think that was my baseline of trust to be like, whatever.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah. And it worked out.
And it worked out. Yeah. What was it for you? Do you have any situation in your head where you remember like that gave me like full trust for life?
I haven't been thinking about it while we're talking, but it was like in the back of my mind somehow anyway. And I don't know, like everything just keeps working out. Like I've been challenging it sometimes, like, but ever since I graduated, it's been like this whole, like, I almost never even looked for work, you know, like it's just like a friend, like, oh, I have this thing, just apply. And I got it straight away. Or like this thing or that, like it was always just like these things just came at me. So I didn't even need to look. I didn't even need to let go of anything. It was just like, I'm so spoiled. I feel annoyed. Like, I'm sorry, listeners, but this is my reality. It's not always like it, but still, like, it's been flowing so easily. And every time I've been like at a certain job, I was flipping burgers for a while. Didn't particularly enjoy it, but at the same time, it was like educational. Like I learned stuff about that business and about how shitty people can be to service workers, for example, and my way of reacting to those situations and like everything that, like having an open mind to every experience. And I always said this to people that were like, you're doing so many different types of work. Like, because every time I went skiing and then I came back in the late spring or summer even and started working again all the way to the end of autumn, and then I left again. So I just worked like half a year and was off skiing half a year. And like, why don't you go back to? I was like, yeah, but I know it inside out. It's not fun. It's not like. And I always found something new that usually paid more and were more exciting, or was in a way that I could expand on whatever. And I always said, I just see work not as work, as just the intensive course that I get paid from. Because like, if you look at it that way, you're like, oh, what am I getting through this experience? I'm getting knowledge. Like I'm learning something in this particular job. I learned how to use a cashier
Or
space.
what you don't want to do in your life.
Yeah, exactly.
Even just that.
Yeah, just that. Yeah. But I learned conversational skills, how to be service-minded, like how to freaking clean tables quick as a motherfucker, like how to fry 15 burgers at once, like all of these things.
Yeah, how to function under stress.
Stress, resilience, like all of the small things. I was also doing the dishes and like all of these things, right? So but the thing is, I did not only get this knowledge, I got paid for this knowledge. I was like, oh my God, this is great. And then the next summer that came, I was a cave guide. And I was like, what the fuck? Do you know anything about caves? Like, nope. My third time I was in the cave, I guided a tour.
Yeah. That was the trust as well.
Yeah, that was so much trust. They were like, I think you're ready. I was like, what? This is my first day. I don't know anything about this. Like, what if they throw a question? It's like, you figure it out. And I did. It was just fully trust. Yeah. The same, like my trip to both. Sorry, now I'm going.
You're really going on a rant.
Yeah.
Go for it.
Hopefully entertaining. Like both when I first went to Canada and when I went to Australia, both times I didn't have a clue. Like I got the Canada, for example, that was my first trip that I did alone in my whole life, basically. Like when I wasn't with a friend or with my family or someone that I knew. 2 friends I knew from that season in France were living in Vancouver, but I was going to be in Whistler, which is like 1.5 hour drive from there. And I got the visa for Canada. I got the ski pass because it was like a limited time to get it. I got these 2 things before I got the flight, before I got a accommodation or anything. And Whistler, if you know anything about Whistler, it's like getting a place to live is impossible, more or less. And I just like wrote on one time I wrote on a random, like on the page where you, and this guy was like, oh yeah, I got like 40 like applications, but you seem really nice. Like, I love your profile. Like, and I like, you got it basically. And I was like, oh, that's amazing. Check. And then it's like, oh, and now I just need a flight. And I booked that afterward. And it's like, when I arrived, my phone battery was dead. Long story, doesn't matter. I just arrived in Vancouver and we're like, okay, I need to find a charging space where I can charge my phone to connect with my 2 friends that live here. I don't know where they live. Didn't get an address, nothing. I was just like fully trusting, and it all just worked out, and everything just worked out. Same with Australia. I arrived.
We need to.
Okay, I went on a rant on just my travels, and I couldn't help myself. Long story short, trust and things figure itself out.
Yes, exactly. And I think that's what a lot of people are missing in this world.
Yeah.
Because when we say that we go into Portugal, people are like in shock. They're like, you're going to have a newborn? Because if you didn't notice, I'm pregnant. And you go into Portugal and you have nothing planned, nothing backed up, and you don't even know how to get there. Yeah. And we're like, yeah.
Pretty much.
Yeah. That's what we've been always doing, and it always worked out. So why change just because we have a baby?
Yeah. Yeah.
We want our baby to trust.
Yeah, exactly. He will trust.
That's the energy that we're going to go in it.
Exactly. Yeah, I think so too. And yeah, this will be so funny if everything just goes to shit.
And you will see that. No, the trust is way too big. I know it won't.
Yeah,
and whatever goes to shit, I mean, what happens then? And that's exactly where most people end. They're like, what if things go to shit? And then it's like, yeah, what if? Mm-hmm. That means that we probably shouldn't be in Portugal, or it's going to be an experience that will shape us. Yep. We will have to find a plan B. Amazing. We have to use this here, our little brain. Mm-hmm. And then we will not end up as homeless people on the street because we have some kind of support system. We have our own company. It will never go like, you know what I mean? Like, what's the worst that can happen? Or what's the best that can happen? Yeah.
Yeah, truly. That's true. And yeah, I think also the, no, I lost it. I had a good thought, but I was too conscious listening to you that it slipped my mind.
Oh.
Yeah. Whoopsies.
Amazing. We like conscious listening.
Yes. No,
Yeah.
but I agree. It's what is the worst that can happen?
Exactly.
And like it becomes just another experience where we can learn. Like if it doesn't work out, then we can ask ourselves, why does it not work out? Or why didn't it work out? And what should we do different next time?
Exactly.
And like that is the same with the work example. It's like, okay, I worked flipping burgers. I didn't like it. I learned from it, but now when I know it inside out, I know that's for sure what I don't want to do.
Exactly.
And I learned from that so-called mistake. That wasn't a mistake, but you know what I mean? You can see it as that.
Yeah. And I think that's the most important part as well, that it's basically your intention or your view on life in general.
Yeah.
Like, do you see things that go wrong as failure? Because I really don't. Like things that go wrong, people that I lose, whatever happens in my life that so-called goes to shit.
Yeah.
I'm always get so curious about, what does that mean?
Yeah.
Well, what's in it for me? What can I learn from this? What can I gain from this?
Yeah, it is really, it is really like that. It is a win-win situation. Whatever you're going through. Like, of course, there could be like catastrophe and unfairness and all of this, but it's also like you can always look from this perspective.
And you can always zoom out even more. What's the spiritual meaning behind all of that? What is like the deeper meaning of it? Like the world has always destroyed itself. You know, every species in the world has eventually destroyed itself.
Heard about the dinosaurs?
So I really believe that whatever is happening is like there's always a bigger plan to it. And that trust to fully embody it and really be in it gives you such a security.
Yeah.
Like it's like, okay, it's not maybe how I want it to be and it's not maybe comfortable. But in the end of the day, it always works out for you. Mm-hmm. Every lesson, every pain, every shit. Like, let's say I lie and I get caught with a lie. God, that's uncomfortable. And it will be really, really shitty for me. But that's my lesson to stop lying. Yeah. And that's still for me. Even if it feels like it's against me, it's still for me. The universe does me a favor because I shouldn't be lying.
That's true. Yeah, that's true. Yeah. Yeah.
And that's why we're also not very scared about the birthing process.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And I think that's something that a lot of women, a lot of couples in general are so terrified of.
To even speak about.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And I'm like, what is the scary part about it? Every species in the universe, I guess, or in the world at least, I can say that, is giving birth in one or the other way. Everything in the world, just like everything dies, everything gives birth. Everything is being born eventually. Yeah. And sometimes it doesn't work out. Yeah, it can be really bad. But let's be realistic, living in a Western world, being able to go to a good hospital, living in a Western world, knowing you can afford a doula. And, it's privilege, but it's like being in this privileged place that we are at. What's the worst that can happen? You can have a really long, really painful, really complicated birth, but then that's your story. Then that's the path that you are meant to go. Yeah. And in the end, as long as the baby will end up on your arms and you will figure things out, I mean, then nobody said birthing's going to be easy, ever. Yeah. I even believe, like I was thinking about it the other day, sorry when I go on around here, but people talk so negatively and are so fearful about death. There's hardly anyone who had a near-death experience or who died when they were like older, where people said they didn't look peaceful, or people who had a near-death experience and didn't say it was really peaceful and they went to a place that felt really good. Yeah. There's hardly any birthing experience where people are not saying that was fucking hard, that was raw. But once again, we're twisting everything in our society and we glorifying the birthing and we talking really bad about the death, even though the death is actually when things are falling into place, when things are going into peace. And the birthing is like raw, dirty, ugly, loud, painful. We still mix it up. We put it the other way around. And I don't understand what this obsession about new beginnings is.
No, that's true. Yeah. That's a good point of view for sure. I don't even know what to add really. I've just been like thinking about like how it's how it's so different from culture to culture as well. Because I was just like, when I hear you like speaking about the Western hospitals and stuff like that, it's like, it's almost like the people that have the least chance, like the lowest risk of anything going wrong in the birth process, are the most scared.
100%.
Or like in the traffic, for example, like it's definitely like one of the Western countries have the least amount of car crashes. Or plane faults, like that has gone down so much that it's not even like existing almost in all the thousands and thousands of planes that are flying. But like there's still the most privileged people that are scared of these things. And then you compare to sitting in a tuk-tuk in India and they're just like, whoop-a-doo-doo-doo, they're just honking and just like, they're just fully surrendered.
Yeah.
And
that
like
truck sometimes almost hits them and they just take a break, look at the truck driver, do a little head wiggle and they continue.
Yeah, and it's like
that would be PTSD.
Not my day today.
That would be PTSD in Europe.
Yeah.
That would literally be like, okay, I had this near-death experience. I can never drive a tuk-tuk again. In India, it happens 10 times a day. They're like,
yeah. And that's also part like, because before our trip, now we're going away from the birth, but we can jump back soon. But when in the beginning of the trip, like why we wanted to move or leave Sweden and Stockholm was because we were in this rabbit loop of like just grind and work and like we're not doing anything for ourselves and we just need to get the fuck out of here. And we kind of lost that trust a little bit.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, you get into the negativity because everyone else is.
Yeah.
And it's so hard to live in a frequency in a pool of black water and not drown in it eventually.
Yeah. Or it's like those, like we have this glass of black water and this is our glass of white water. If you're going to pour like just a little bit of the black cup of water, it's gonna change color, our glass. Exactly. And that's really the same kind of thing that happened. And we were like, we just need to, doesn't make any sense. Everyone questioned it. Everyone's like, but your business is going like the best it has now, right? And we're like, yep, well, we
need to go.
This doesn't work. Like we have to do something now.
Yeah.
And India for me was definitely we kept speaking about it like, holy shit, they're so trusting. It's just trust of everything. And we got so inspired of like, okay, let's just give and love. And like, it's just that beautiful part of that culture.
Yeah.
But also in Mexico and everywhere we were.
Yeah. There was a lot of, I think it's the fact that people in the West, especially now in Sweden, talking about Sweden, you're so busy doing that you don't have time to flow. So you never start trusting because you're constantly building, I don't know, like an escalator. So you don't think, how would it feel like if I would just slide down that mountain rather than building an escalator? Because you've always been building that escalator and you don't trust the mountain because you haven't used it without.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like that mentality of like in developing countries, they have way less access to like, mind control and media in that way. And they're way more with the family, they're way more in the moment. They live still really from joy because most of them never really had to grow up that quickly. I feel like they have a lot of childlike energy in them, where you go to the West and it was like from school, you have to behave like an adult.
Yeah.
You have to follow rules. It's kind of getting killed for you, this whole joy mentality. And it's like working from the heart and just being in the moment.
That's true, yeah.
So when you come like me from traveling in these developing countries to going back into the West, it's like a reverse culture shock. Because you're just like, everyone is scared. Everyone is negative. Everyone is so worried losing their security. Yep. And then you live in other places in the world, like I did in Thailand, where nobody has security. And people are just living day by day. And they're so happy because that's the same kind of trust that I have. There's like, what's the worst that can happen? Yeah. If I die, it's probably going to be fine.
Yeah. This whole... journey of trust is interesting, and to see it in so many different cultures as well. And I agree with the childlike energy, and even the people that are growing up too fast, like the kids that are like not
Working.
privileged at all, that lost their family or whatever straight away and had to work straight away. But it's still like this, I don't know, this childlike energy in the whole culture.
Yeah.
That is this, yeah. And of course, there's bad patches all over, and it doesn't matter where you go.
Yeah.
But if you look at the broader perspective, it's definitely like a winning factor compared to, for example, Sweden. We're bashing a lot of Sweden right now.
I was just thinking the same thing, but I think the thing in Sweden is that everyone agrees with us. That's what we spoke about, right?
Yeah.
We talk to people living in Sweden all their lives, and we tell them the reasons why we want to leave Sweden, and they're just like, no, like, yeah.
Makes sense.
Makes sense. I would leave too, but I've always been here, so it's okay. And I think that's for me as well, the fact that I didn't grow up in Sweden, that I came here during the pandemic, where it was the best place in the world to be, pretty much.
Yeah.
And then after the pandemic, I thought it's going to get even more liberated. Because that was kind of my idea. I was like, okay, well, it was so free during the pandemic. It's going to be amazing when the pandemic ends. But then it kind of stayed like that.
It's like,
it felt like nothing changed after the pandemic in Sweden.
I think it was bad before. And then the pandemic like dimmed it down a little bit. And then it just stayed there. Basically.
Yeah.
I think that. But I don't know for certain either. And then there's difference from like city to city in Sweden. Like me growing up in Gothenburg compared to Stockholm is like so different. I feel.
But we also spoke about it that you were much younger growing up in Gothenburg. That there was a different surrounding, different people you're hanging out with. It was a different focus.
Yeah, that's true.
And I think in Stockholm, probably younger people are a little bit different as well. You know, it depends, of course, which part of Stockholm.
Yeah.
But you know what I mean? Like, I think it's also like the older you get, the more society is getting into that rabbit hole of not trusting, of living with fear, especially since the pandemic. Like, nobody trusted in the pandemic. Nobody trusted their neighbors. People were arguing with their neighbors they were friends with for 20 years because someone didn't want to wear a mask or didn't want to get vaccinated.
Yeah.
Well, I'm like, this is like so beyond what we as humans should do. Like, and that is so against my trust system. That's why I was in the pandemic very much like a rebel, saying like, I trust my body, I trust my life. And if this virus is supposed to kill me, then that's what it is.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And that's definitely why we moved to Sweden and not stayed in Berlin.
Yes.
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah.
But yeah, in general speaking, I just wish for people living in the West to just let go sometimes a little bit more, especially in Sweden, for people to just actually connect to themselves rather than to the voices around them. And not always listen to, oh, my parents don't want me to go to Mexico because it's scary for them. It's like, yeah, but what is your inner trust saying? I meet so many people who don't even know what they're trusting is. They don't even know what trust is.
Yeah.
Like we spoke about our landlord who said, oh, he didn't know if he can trust us. But it was not about us. It was more like about, but do you trust? Do you trust in life, right? You said it so well earlier.
Yeah, we had a situation where we were holding a facilitator training, and we just moved in the month before this, and there was this whole problem with the payment that we didn't know. We were in this deep journey with 10 days, 11 days, but 10 full days. That was just like crazy heavy. That's like a whole podcast in itself. But that time was so deep for us, and we were just in it, like elbow grease all over, like we're in it, right?
Yeah.
I didn't look much on my emails or anything, and we were just in the process.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, like the last day we're having the end ceremony is like beautiful and heavy and all of the feelings. And I just get this like big ass text of like, you're getting kicked out basically because you haven't paid. And it's like, what the fuck? And it was just like this big stress, and all of this thing happened, and we continued working, and I called him, and there was this whole unnecessary untrust vibe of like, we're just good people, like we're just regular people, we doing our best, and there was a miscommunication.
But also like the fact, that's what I said, like how is, like we're living on the same property. It's not that our landlord lives in Spain and we live in his house in Sweden.
Yeah.
We literally have 5 steps apart from our houses. And we told him, we're going to be away for 10 days. We see you in 10 days. Like, how little can you trust in life, in the world, in general, that you assume, even though we live 5 steps away, that we would try to scam and not pay the rent.
Yeah.
This whole mindset about it is like, what do you think we're doing? Do you think we're going to lock ourselves in this little house next to your house and pretend we're not at home for the next 3 months?
Yeah.
Like, just logically thinking, like, there must be some kind of trust of like, they will be back in a couple of days and we can sit down and talk and they probably have a good explanation.
Yeah.
Or
and if not, I'll catch them then.
And then I kick them out then.
Yeah.
Exactly. This trust, as you said, in like your own life. It's like, they will not be able to fuck me over because this is my property and this is like they're literally living next door to me.
Yeah, the house is full of their stuff. It's like there's more value in the house that they didn't even lock when they left because they're trusting so much. That is worth more than what this payment missed would be. Yeah. And it's just like, anyway, long story short, you had a dialogue with him on text and it was just like, but you need to, like, there's no trust. I feel uncomfortable with this living situation. Like, what is this? And then we talked about it because there was this, you were out for a walk and then it ended up me having a eye-to-eye conversation. And he was just like not understanding what we meant with trust. Because it was just like, how can I trust you? I don't know you, la, la, la. I was like, that's not what we mean. We mean like trust in general. Like how, like you trusted, you said to me that you had a gut feeling about us. You didn't want a reference number from any past landlord. We seem like nice people. You said in this conversation that there was no problems before this incident. Those 3 things should be enough trust in general. Yeah. But he had in his head that I can't trust strangers. Yeah. But it's like, but no, it's trust from within that we're talking about. And he just couldn't connect those two and he still can't. No. And that's okay. But because we're all on different paths in life. But it was just so interesting and so black on white how he didn't understand at all what you texted about. Yeah, no, there's so many different layers to this. And there's so many different layers in the society about it. And our society we're living in. And the young people are all not trusting themselves to create something themselves as well. You know, like we spoke about in the last podcast, I'm just going to bring that up again, the sheeps and the followers. Yeah. The leaders and the sheep. There you go. Yeah. It's like, I think the whole society is built on people not trusting themselves and their abilities because you're being so put into categories like this is the only way it works. Yeah. That you don't even try to put out your own thing. You don't even try to dip your toe into your own water because you're like, oh, this is unsafe. That's what I've been taught from the beginning. Yep. And I should only do the safe things. Yep. And that's where the trust goes out the window from school age on. Yep. So there's so many young people walking around not trusting themselves and thinking they're not good enough, they're not smart enough, they're not pretty enough, just because someone said it, because you don't build kids nowadays with that trust within, that everything is going to be okay and that they're good enough and that they can do it themselves and that they are human just like everyone else. Yeah. And that trust should be within us, that like if someone could climb the Mount Everest, let's say, and I also am a healthy human, then I can also climb the Mount Everest. But most people think like, oh, I can't do that. Yeah. Straight away, it's like this like fear of failure before even trying. Yeah. And so many people have that like, how can you just move to Portugal? Going back to that thing, how can you trust everything's going to be okay? You going there with a newborn. And we're like, yes. People before us have done it. They moved to Portugal. And we've done it, but without babies, but we've done it. We moved all over the world. You know, I hitchhiked in I don't know how many 100 cars across the world in different languages that I didn't even speak. Yeah. And it's like this trust into my path just feels least resistant. And that's where I'm going, where the whole world is trimmed to go towards resistance, towards fight and flight. Play safe. Yes. And safe in this context, on paper it's safe. The logical mind is like, this is safe. Yeah. But in reality, the gut feeling will say that it's not. Yeah. And if the gut feeling says something, you should listen to it. You should always listen to it. And don't kill down those words within you. Exactly. There's a song that I would like to recommend. It's called Play It Safe, I think, with Seth Sentry. He's an Australian rapper. Nice. And that song is just like the definition of what we're talking about. He's like, in the song, there's him going to a school and his old school. And he's just singing about all the things that you shouldn't do. And then it ends up with him saying like, here's the kicker, do everything opposite of what I told you to, because you should not play it safe. Because like, oh, just be afraid of the waterfall because it can hurt you. Be afraid of this. You shouldn't do that. La la la. And it's such an like, it's just 3 minutes of a song, but the message is so nice. And it's just like, fuck yeah. I would never, if I listened to my boring ass teacher here in this classroom, I would never be where I am today. I would never do what I would love to do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what's your message to people, maybe even from Sweden, who grew up like you and are still playing it safe and are scared to go out there and explore?
Yeah, I was going to ask you something similar, but I would say, like, you don't have to move to Portugal. Like, the thing is to the safe zone. Like, this is my comfort zone. It's a circle, right? And you need to broaden that circle, and you will understand that when you go out of that comfort zone, when you start to trust the unknown, because this circle is everything that you know, right? Like everything in here is like family, friends, hobbies, work, like everything, like I know this. And whenever you're stepping outside of that circle, it's really scary, really uncomfortable. But then you either learn from it and jump back in the circle and it becomes a little bit bigger because you learn from that experience. So next time you go there, there's more likely that you will feel comfortable with that. And slowly this circle will become bigger and bigger, and you will learn that when you go outside of your trust and trust that you're not trusting, that's like your comfort zone of this feeling that is not trust will become a beautiful thing that is trust. Like, I know that this is scary. I know that this feels uncomfortable or whatever and new, but I will grow from it. And I trust that it will somehow broaden my circle of comfort zone. And I think that is really it. So start small. Like, and these are things you can do, like silly things, right? You can say, like, ask anyone on the bus stop something, just the time. Just go to someone on the, excuse me, my phone is dead. What is the time? That is uncomfortable for some people, right? And especially today, especially in Sweden, you wouldn't dare. I go around in the underground of Stockholm and just smiling and waving at people. They think I have a mental disorder, but I'm just happy, you know? But it's true. But people with me just being a little bit outside, they get uncomfortable because I'm out of the norm. That's so in my comfort zone to be friendly and happy and smiley to random people that they have never practiced. And it's just like, and also like in our facility, now I'm going full rant, but on our facilitator trainings as well, we're talking a lot about the voice and like how you can use it, like in different ways to amplify holding a breathwork session and anything in life. Is he awake?
He's awake. Yeah, he's kicking. Yeah.
And during this one, like this session, when I'm talking about the voice, I always do like an example. Like, you can walk into a grocery store or a 7-Eleven or the gas station or whatever, and just pretend that you have an accent. Like, super uncomfortable, super weird. But you can do that. You can go into a gas station and then sound completely different.
And they will never know.
They will never know. They don't know you. They don't know you have an accent. It's like, whoa, that accent was super weird and didn't sound like the real thing. But maybe that's just how he speaks. And that will be super uncomfortable for you. But you will if you do that 5 times, especially in the same day, for example, you will not feel uncomfortable. And all of a sudden you will it's like doing an ice bath. Just, it's fucking uncomfortable every time. But every time you do it, it's a little bit less. And that's how I would do it. Yeah. And, but asking you back, like, when you're in that uncomfortable space, like, how do you deal with it? Like, every time when you feel like this almost disbelief of trust, or where you felt like there was like friction or like a challenge to trust, like, how do you overcome that yourself?
I personally think of all the moments how everything always works out and that I can trust.
If you don't have a moment like that.
Okay, then I usually try to embrace the discomfort because I feel like everything that's really uncomfortable has always worked out to make me grow.
Mm-hmm.
So nowadays I'm sometimes almost seeking the discomfort. Like when I screw up, like yesterday, I forgot a breathwork class that I was supposed to hold. And I could have just played it small and tell the person, don't tell anyone though. But instead I put it on my Instagram and I said, I'm so sorry, I screwed up.
Yeah.
And it felt so uncomfortable to do that. But I was like, by putting it out there, I will teach myself to not do that again because it's uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And I see it always as like this really beautiful lesson of like the more uncomfortable I make myself feel or others make me feel, the more I can learn and grow from it. And that's what my goal is in life. So I think just recreating the idea of how life should feel and what you want life to be at. And instead of seeking the safety and the love in external things, try to build it in within yourself. So you're not needing them from the external parts. So the safety that people are looking by having a safe job or like, having a safe income or, taking a pre-booked holiday once a year. That safety is not real. They're only looking for that because they don't have it inside of themselves. If you feel safe inside of yourself, then you don't need all of that. Then you're happy to just, try it out and move to Portugal and be without money for a bit and be without a job and, just fly to a destination without having your hotel pre-booked. Because you have a safety inside of yourself that is so beyond bigger than any safety you can gain from external parts. And that's the same as we speak about always with the self-love. You don't need a confirmation from outside the whole time if you have it within. And it's such a impossible almost lesson to learn for so many people, but you keep going back there and you keep going to get the same slaps in the face over and over again until you are willing to try it.
Yeah.
And it's so much easier because once you've tried it, once you get there, safety, love from within, it's a foundation that you can stand on.
Yeah.
You can lean on anytime.
Nice. Yeah, that's good.
Yeah.
So, another question.
Yes.
That was very mental.
Yes.
The way that you described it. If someone is in a situation like that again, or with that knowledge now we have the mental knowledge of that. How would you approach it physically, like the body? How can you help your mind to think this rationally? Because many in this zone, when they're outside of the comfort zone, when they're in a situation where they feel that they can't trust, you're not thinking rational. You're usually like, oh, there was something this Nick said on this podcast, but I forgot it completely. Yeah. How do I find back to a rational mind?
Okay, so I have two things there that I would say. First of all, of course, the thing we always preach, like catch your breath, calm yourself down with your own breathing, notice how your heart rate goes down and just do it anyway, because you're in control of your stress reaction through your breath. So you can always control that.
How do you do that?
Long and slow exhales. Slow down your breathing in and out through the nose. The longer you exhale, the calmer you'll become. Yeah. That's a really, really good one. But the other thing that I teach a lot to people, like when I'm in a reaction that you just described, how can I next time or the next 5 times not be in that reaction anymore? And I say it's a practice. So get yourself in a reaction and observe it and guide yourself over and over again into a safe space. It is something we need to practice because we've been practicing since we were little children from parents to be like, no, this is dangerous. Don't do it. No. And our body is just like, the reaction is implemented, is programmed into our body, into our mind, into everything that we do. So if we can teach ourselves to mentally rehearse a situation that would scare us and be able to stay in our body in a calm state, that's when we're actually going to end up succeeding. And that doesn't happen overnight because we need to reprogram. And that's why mental rehearsing is so powerful, that you go in a state of meditation where you just take some breaths when you're in the living room. And let's say it's about anger, because I had a client that was very angry at his wife a lot of times. And I said to him, I was like, what's the first feeling that arises for you when you get angry? And he said, well, I really feel this like tension in my shoulders and I feel like I just need to scream. And I'm like, okay, can you get yourself there right now when you think of that situation? And he was like, oh yeah, I can feel it. I was like, okay, now close your eyes and breathe slower. And he's like, okay. And then I got him into a meditative state. And I'm like, and now think of that situation with your wife and feel how your body starts to cramp up and see if you can let it go again and pulse basically pulsate in it. So you're teaching your body a certain reaction by going there on purpose while it's not actually urgent, while it's not happening, because the mind doesn't know. The mind thinks it's happening. You tell your mind it's happening, then your whole body will react.
Yep.
And that is why it's so easy when we think now of a situation that makes us angry or aroused.
Yep.
Our whole body will react because our mind tells our body what is the reality.
That is happening.
Exactly. Yeah. So if you can sit down and you can rehearse it in a way, in a safe space, and that's why breathwork is so powerful, because you're processing things while you are in a safe space, while your breath is in a certain rhythm. But you can still rehearse situation that can be very intimidating or very scary for you.
Yep.
And if you can go through it over and over again, eventually you teach your body that it doesn't need to react to that thought anymore.
Yeah.
And it's a practice. But if you do
is.
that every day for like a couple of weeks, you will notice that you react differently. And it doesn't take years. It doesn't take months. Sometimes it is something you just have to do every day for a couple of weeks.
Yeah.
And people are so lazy with that. They're like, I'd rather stay scared and unhappy.
Because it's still a comfort zone to not go into this discomfort. Because like that's what you talked about, the death. Like now we're going full circle because when something dies, it's peaceful, but before that it will not.
Yeah.
And like the birth of something new is painful.
Exactly.
And like you have to go into the death of this reaction to then birth the new way of doing it, you know? So
100%.
Yeah, it's exactly what you said. Like it's so spot on because but people are just, I'm too comfortable here.
Yeah.
Breathing is hard and it's not nice. And I feel all these strong emotions. It's like, yes, they're there for a reason. You should feel them. And the more you feel them in this safe environment, that the further you will be pushed away from them and feel new feelings instead of that feeling.
100%.
And it will be uncomfortable those 3 weeks or however long you need to do it.
Yeah.
And it's a process. But it's like being ripped. Being jacked at the gym. It's like you can't go there once and like, oh, that was uncomfortable and I'm sore and now I'm ripped. It's like, and that's gonna stay my whole life. Everyone knows you have to go back. You have to keep sustaining the pain.
Yeah, 100%.
to getting the gains that you want.
100%. And that's what we spoke about the other day, that for people who are so used to unsafety, people who are so used to mistrust, people who are so used to a nervous system that is constantly in fight and flight, they will find peace very uncomfortable. They will find it very unfamiliar. They will not recognize a relationship that feels healthy and good either to others or within themselves because they're not used to it. It doesn't feel safe. And that is, I think, the biggest problem, that most people are so obsessed with this safety feeling of the comfort zone that they don't allow themselves to be happy. Where my idea of happiness is like, if it costs my happiness, then fuck that. I don't want to do it. Anything. If I need to sacrifice my happiness, it's not for me.
Yeah. That's mic drop right there. Yeah, it really is. It comes down to it because if you zoom out and get the bigger picture of it, you understand that that's what's necessary.
Exactly.
Yeah, and it was the same. Like the breathwork session I held now before this podcast was like, it was from stress to bliss was the theme of and we started like really hectic with like almost annoying music, and like I on purpose wanted everyone that was joining to feel stress, to feel any friction within their body, even if there wasn't present there. But it's always something that is nudging in us. It doesn't matter how good we have it. It's like this past thing that happened or this upcoming thing, or in general, like I can find the feeling of frustration within me. And with hectic breathing, we just went into it and like feel it more. And then from that state, we just like went slowly from up here down to bliss. Yeah,
because that's what most people can't do. Yeah. They can't do the transition. They stay in the discomfort, or they stay in the like stress.
Yeah.
Because the stress became comfortable.
Yeah, exactly.
Or they don't allow themselves to process the discomfort. They just like kind of constantly numb themselves down by pushing the things away that are uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And if they arise, they just freeze or don't know how to deal with it, and they just distract themselves and move on. And that's why distraction is like the biggest market in the world. Anything that can distract you is going to make money.
We're distracting you right now.
Do you know what I mean? And most people, all they need to do is get rid of the distraction. That's why full circle, Vipassana is such a good place to go.
Yeah.
because you are not going to be distracted. You can't. You have to be with yourself, and you're going to go crazy.
Yeah.
And this is exactly what you accumulated over the years.
Yeah, so true. So true. Yeah, it's really, yeah. And then you can also be smart and choose your distraction to be healthy, like listening to this distracting podcast. But we're talking about like actual subject you can either make you think about them or implement some kind of new way of thinking about life.
100%.
Right? But it's also like, am I choosing to watch Netflix or am I choosing to read this book? It's like, what distraction will I choose? And that's also a step that you can take, right? That is so easy. And just like, I remember, I think it was Garen Jones that talked about like, just be honest with yourself, write down your calendar, like, or not your calendar, but your week, and clock the time that you're doing things. And just notice and add up all the hours that you're wasting. And I did that. Powerful. I did that shit, and it was the most uncomfortable thing ever. I was like, "Holy shit!
I'm wasting my life."
And I calculated, and it's like, yeah, and then add that up, and then multiply it by 365 days, and it was just like, and then multiply that with 10 years, and it was just like, it's so much time. It's like I could do anything.
Write a book.
I could do anything with this time. Yeah, I can with this time. I can walk around the world. Yeah. It's so like, yeah, it's true, and that's the way it is.
Let's slowly come to an end.
Yeah,
I
think we should end this podcast with some guided breaths.
I think that's a really good idea.
Do you want to guide me? Because you can't hold your breath because you're pregnant?
Yeah, I can guide you.
Are you sure?
Yeah,
sure. Cool.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So, beautiful listeners, you can now take that moment, unless you're driving a car, then save that for later.
Or doing anywhere close to water, or where you can hit yourself.
Exactly. I mean, and hit yourself, but fall off.
Fall down and hurt yourself. So if you're in a rocky mountain, lay down.
Beautiful. And then you can sit down or lay down and close your eyes. And then just start to feel within, how much trust is there? How much inner power can you find? And it's okay if there's none at the moment. That is totally fine as well. And then just observe your breath without changing it. And then find trust in that natural come and go from your breath. Always present, even if we're asleep. And then gently take control over that trust and allow the belly to rise deeper. Allow the chest to rise high. And then exhale through the mouth. And again, breathing in, taking control over your life, into the belly, into the chest. Letting go. One more time, expanding your horizon in your breath and letting go of doubt. So 2 more of those. Deepen the breath, breathe in some trust, letting go of negative thoughts. And 1 deep, 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 deep breath, filling up all of it and holding your breath, trusting. Everything's gonna be okay. You can relax here. Your body doesn't need you to breathe yet. And then if you can, as slow as possible, either through the nose or the mouth, try to let the breath go. And once you land in a space where it feels comfortable, you take control and you hold it there again. And then you let go a little bit more. And once you're in the end of your breath, you can just rest. And when you need to breathe again, trust your body, let it breathe. And from here, we will let you go, guys. You can stay in this comfortable seat as long as you like. You can save this part or go to our YouTube join our membership, and have way more of these beautiful little breathwork sessions. Thank you for being here. We appreciate you.
We really do. If you know anyone that would feel that this podcast would be valuable, or if you want to share this with the world, we are so thankful for every share, every like, every comment, anything that you give us as feedback so we can improve. And yeah, if you have suggestions on topic that you want us to talk about and all of these things, let us know.
Let us know.
Your input is very valuable for us. So with that said, thank you so much. This was your MindDate, and love you.
Love you.